about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So one thing that's on a lot of your minds is how to not lose your mind. How to not come down with Alzheimer's or dementia. And a question I commonly get is, how do I know my little lapses in memory, like losing keys or forgetting a family member's name, isn't the start of Alzheimer's or isn't the start of another type of dementia? And my answer to you or to anybody on that is always talk to a medical provider, even about the mild memory loss issues. Now, I would rather you get on top of it early than wait until you're walking around outside naked. Which for some of us is a choice, but for most of us, if I'm ever running around outside naked, I'm telling you right now, I am not of sound mind. I do not like being naked. Even in the shower, I don't like being naked. I so worry about when I wash my hair and you get a little dizzy sometimes that I'll fall, and then the paramedics are going to have to come and I'll be naked. So I want to be in a bathing suit just in case that happens. But sometimes I cannot wear a bathing suit in the shower. I get that. But it's a very common concern as we get older to worry that some of our memory lapses could be, early cognitive decline. Also, we're being reminded of it day after day with Biden. Biden's been out of office, but I think a journalist, an Axios reporter, called out the White House press for not covering his mental decline. And, it's something that we all saw. And it was frightening because for those of us old enough to have watched Joe Biden in his, multi-decade career, we all could see the changes. Now, we felt a little better seeing Trump because Trump still looks with it. I mean, boy, this guy has more energy than most 20-year-olds I know. But, when you see the flailing of our previous president, it makes us all nervous that could happen to any of us. And the reason why it's making people nervous, it's not because they're Democrat, right? Because there's a lot of conservatives that are worried about that too. It's that, if Joe Biden, who is richer than rich, has access to the best medical care in the world, had that steep a decline in his functioning, then it seems like we're all going to be goners. And it's a frightening thought. So what I always recommend is, while you're waiting to see a medical provider and what can they do? Well, they could do a scan and look for brain atrophy. They could look at changes in the brain. They could look at signs of multi-infarct dementia. There's previous strokes. Heart disease. So there's a lot of things they could look at, not only for risk factors, but actual brain function. They could also do mental status exams. There's a variety of testing they could do. They could refer you to a neurologist, and they could even start you on medication that might be able to help stave off some of the symptoms. So always get checked out. But while you're waiting for that appointment, and for some of us it might be months, look and see why you're forgetting things. Is it because when your husband tells you to pick something up at a store, you're on your laptop going, yeah, honey, all right, love you, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, of course you're not going to remember what he said. Is it that you're getting lazy and you're not putting your keys in the same place they're always supposed to be? See, when I come home, I throw everything on the kitchen table. Well, my keys will always be on the kitchen table. But if you sometimes have them in your pocket, or you take your purse and you go somewhere else, or like sometimes I have to run away, right? Or I have to pee really quickly, and so I race to the bathroom. Sometimes the keys are there. Well, then, you have to have a process. Have rituals. Have protocols. Okay? Even if I go to the bathroom, I don't begin my post walk in the house behavior until I put the keys down, I put the jacket away. I take my shoes off. There's a process you do. And then you hopefully won't forget your keys. I know now we have these little Apple AirTags that we can put on our keys so we know we can find our keys. But, some of those mental exercises could help. I brought this up earlier. I think you should start using your left hand if you're right-handed or your opposite dominant hand more. For poops and giggles. You always reach with one hand. Try the other one. Now, I get it. I cannot brush my teeth with my left hand. Now, I don't want my teeth to suffer. But there's a lot of things I use my right hand. I just let my left hand just lie to my side. Use it more. The more you use it, the more you might be waking up part of your brain. Also, do little exercises where you have to memorize things. And then test yourself. Try and put things to memory. See, the big problem we have is in school, we had test after test, vocab after vocab. I remember, and I went to 12 schools, one of my high schools, because they wanted us to get good grades on the SAT, and that's one of the reasons why I got a 1450 on my SAT. They really hit us hard in honors English with vocabulary. We would get 20 new vocabulary words that were very common on the SATs, and then we would be tested on one of 200 words from previous weeks. So I had to review 200 words every Thursday night before my Friday test. And boy, did I put those to memory. I had these little flashcards and I would go through them and I would study them. So, when I look at what I did with calculus and history and science and all the memorizing I had to do, and then all of a sudden you stop and now, I'm having a baby and I'm watching Sesame Street and Barney with the kids. And, if you don't use it, you start to lose it. So maybe take a class. And see how well you do. Take a class. And don't do the online cheating with ChatGPT. I mean, actually study and try and take the class. And that might also build up some of your confidence. Try and do math problems on your own. I'm guilty of this too. I just always go to Siri and I ask Siri to do the calculation. But if at all you're concerned about some of your common memory loss lapses, get a medical provider to take a look at you. But also come up with some protocols, even if it's Post-it notes or shopping lists, to try to prevent those mishaps. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Now, don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on X or Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So for the first time in Maine's history, we are being told by WGME that a transgender woman is going to compete in Miss Maine USA. Isabel St. Cyr, 24 years old, of Monson, says rule changes allowed transgender women to compete in the pageant. She calls it a blessing that she's been able to be the Maine's first transgender competitor, and she's glad to represent the trans community in Maine. But she also says there's been a lot of backlash since she signed up, and people have physically harassed her. I mean, I'm looking at her. She's good looking. I wouldn't say she's pageant beautiful, but let me finish and then I'll tell you what I think about the situation here. She says, it does make me feel a little bit scared. She says, because I'm used to, the occasional slur or off comment, but having someone coming by and like throwing beer cans and stuff, it definitely gets a little scary. And it does, it doesn't make you lose hope, she says, but it definitely is a little bit upsetting to see it still happening so prevalent in our communities with how far that we've come. And she will be competing. The pageant starts on May 10th. Judges are going to announce finalists on May 11th. And so if the judges want to be woke, you could be sure that she's going to probably make it, because the judges aren't going to want to look anti-LGBTQAI plus transgender community. But, this is something that I don't understand. And maybe it's because I'm of the age where, women struggled to get volleyball teams and basketball teams, and the progress women have made to make it as far as they've gone in sports, I mean, look at how we have the WNBA, and look at how we have, it still doesn't have the same popularity as men's sports. And I do prefer to watch men's sports, but just because that's what I'm used to. But it's growing. There's a fan base, there's money, there's advertisers, there's, women competing with other women was something that women fought long and hard for. And then in the last decade or two, somebody decided, well, let's let biological men compete with women and put them in their place. And now women are coming in second, third to a biological male who identifies as female. And if somebody wanted to, quote unquote, put women in their place and remind women that biological men may be superior at an athletic level, depending on the sport, that's what you do. You say, all right, you identify as female, fine, you're biological male. And now women are standing next to a podium next to somebody who's biologically male, not allowing to win. Not allowed to, and also affecting their privacy, affecting, and it's there's a lot of ramifications to it. I believe if transgender individuals want to compete with other transgender individuals, that might be something that they could pursue. But when you have an all-girl team sport and you're trying to separate them from the boys, the reason why girls are separated from boys is for safety. So girls wouldn't be assaulted. So girls have privacy. So girls wouldn't be hit in the head with a volleyball and suffer from traumatic brain injury. That's why we separated girls. It's not because people were anti-LGBTQAI+. It's because they wanted to protect individuals who may not have the same physical stature, height, weight, etc. And we do that with lightweights, heavyweights, featherweights, in boxing. We align people up based on weight, based on height, based on, do we need to do that for sports? If people are going to be accused of being anti-LGBTQAI+ because they will not let a 6'2" biological male, transgender female compete with 5'2" women, then maybe then to protect them from the woke mob, have it all based on height and weight and muscle mass. And I don't understand why they're saying this is anti-transgender community, to not incorporate them into sports of their desired gender. That it doesn't make any sense. So with a beauty pageant, I can understand if there's a transgender or a drag beauty pageant. There are some individuals who are absolutely exquisite as women. And if you want to have separate competitions for that, but if women are trying to compete with other women, you got to give them the ability to compete with other women. If not, then just have it mixed, women and men. But this idea that, well, I identify as a woman or I identify as a man, so now I get to be, it's just too complicated. And it's actually diminishing the populations you're trying to help. You know how many LGBTQAI+ community members are not in support of biological males being in girls' locker rooms? And now their community is marred with this. People who are in that community don't always want to be aligned with some of these more extreme positions. Same thing with books that have to do with sex. Apparently, SCOTUS is, I think, listening to a case where 3 and 4-year-olds in a preschool were being read to about LGBTQAI+ topics. And, the average person, that they're not advocating for that. And so not only are you affecting certain populations, but you're also affecting the same population you think you're advocating for. And it doesn't make sense. There's a study looking at menopause in the transgender community. They say menopause is under-researched in transgender and gender-diverse individuals. They say there's a lack of understanding and agreement about menopause between the transgender and gender-diverse communities, and medical professionals contribute to the lack of care. Well, many medical professionals aren't trained in how to deal with a female who identifies as male, goes on testosterone, still has their ovaries, then their ovaries stop, and the balancing of the hormones. Many medical students don't get trained in that. It's very complex, and it's because also we're supposed to do no harm. And some of these hormone treatments, could cause mood disorders, could cause blood clots, could cause elevated risk of cardiovascular and stroke. I mean, look at what happened with the Women's Health Initiative, postmenopausal estrogen. The study had to be stopped because women were having heart attacks. And these were women getting estrogen. Where's the Women's Health Initiative study for transgender men? I mean, these hormones are some pretty serious stuff. And people wonder why doctors are speaking out about kids being put on heavy doses of hormones or puberty blockers. The hormone system is a very intricate system, and boy, are we humbled by it. I got to tell you, my hormones brought me to my knees. Wow. And I hated having my period. I hated having cramps. I hated having the migraines. I hated the breast pain. And boy, when your boobies go from 0 to 90 in one semester, wow. I mean, not easy. But I took it and I lived with it because I was told that I have to have that sort of system in play as a woman because that allows me to have a baby. And I got to tell you, having my 2 children, thank God, I would have gone through 1,000 more periods of, knowing that was going to be the gift I could have. And don't you think it's anti-LGBTQ AI plus community by inhibiting their ability to have kids, assuming that they want to be castrated or go through chemical sterilization with hormones? So we'll see what happens with this beauty pageant, but I think there's going to be a lot of criticism. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So people are being very, very critical about RFK Jr. and his goal to figure out why autism is now being, actually, this was a couple years ago, a study by 2022 finding 1 in 31 individuals on the autism spectrum, which means one child in every classroom at least has autism. The number is skyrocketing. So RFK Jr. has come up with a deadline of September to find the cause. Now, whether he finds the cause by September, that's daring. I hope he does. But at least somebody is looking at it. However, in order to find the cause of anything, you need to look at individuals with autism and try to find common denominators. Now, people say we have AI, we have computers, we have spreadsheets. Why isn't anybody looking at this and figuring out what it is? If there's a question about vaccines, which vaccine was the last one given before they exhibited symptoms? I don't personally think vaccines cause autism. We have found a study after study a genetic cause. But what if some of these children diagnosed with autism don't necessarily have autism, but a side effect, a neurological side effect? Okay, we have the technology to look at everybody and figure out what possibly could be going on. But there's a privacy issue. And that is what's being criticized as it pertains to RFK Jr.'s National Autism Registry. So he would be gathering records and then trying to figure out what are the common denominators. So his initiative calls for the collections of these medical records. The data would be gathered by Department of Veterans Affairs, Indian Health Service, National Institutes of Health Director. That's what Dr. Jay Bhattacharya explained to Newsweek. They said the individual's confidentiality would be protected, but they would be approaching this a little similarly to how we do reportable illness. So I know people are saying, oh my gosh, the government is going to look at our medical records. I'm not a fan of anybody looking at anyone's medical records. However, your medical records are always being looked at by your insurance company. When you're asking Blue Cross Blue Shield to cover your hysterectomy, and the person making the decision is, why? Why is Dr. Daliah getting a hysterectomy? Well, looking at her ultrasound, they're still following that tumor she had years ago, and which was benign, but, she's been having pelvic pain or whatever. And so obviously people are discussing it. So are we going to approve Dr. Daliah's hysterectomy? Well, I guess we have to. Based on, did you review all her ultrasounds? Yes. So somebody on the 5th floor of some building is looking at my medical records to decide if insurance is going to pay. So I am already lacking that privacy. If you have a reportable illness like E. coli, Giardia, Lyme disease, malaria, the CDC finds out about it, needs to. We have to report it. And then they need to go in and look and investigate where this is coming from. Who is spreading the TB? What restaurant could be spreading the E. coli? If you have an STD, that is a reportable illness. So the government has been collecting information on reportable illnesses so they could epidemiologically address it. How many of you got a text during COVID saying that somebody near you had COVID and you need to quarantine? And you're like, how did you get my number? How did you know who I was with? So everybody's kind of getting their panties all up in a bunch that RFK Jr. is going to be now looking at autism information. And I get it. I don't like the government being involved any more than they have to be. But this isn't their first rodeo. They have registries all the time. They have a registry of vaccine side effects. They have registries of things. I don't want to be on anybody's list. But then that, unfortunately, if I do get a reportable illness, I will be. If I get diarrhea and somebody does a stool culture and I have salmonella, that's going to go into a registry. So registries exist. If they are promising to keep individuals' confidentiality protected, like they do every other registry, then it's, we have to decide, do we want them to figure out why autism is rising or not? Do we want them to stop tuberculosis? Do we want them to find out which restaurants could be spreading salmonella? This is kind of what the Centers for Disease Control does. If you go to the health department and get a vaccine because you're traveling out of the country, that's on a list. If you're traveling to Europe, it's on a list. So, data is being collected. And so people for years have said, look, why is autism rising? Why are we still debating? If they're saying it's genetic, well, then what's affecting the genes? So if the studies are saying that autism, true autism, not an autistic-like neurodiverse disorder, if it is true autism and autism is genetic, then usually with genes, that starts to neutralize or dilute out. Instead, it's going the other way. Autism is becoming more prevalent. So then as a doctor, my question is, what's happening to the genes? Is it an environmental toxin? What is changing the genes to make us have more autism? And we do know that things change genes. Things can affect your gene expression. Things can mutate your genes. So we have to ask that question. So one of the fastest ways to figure out what could be one of the causes, and this is what they do in studies all the time. They look at medical records from hospitals. They cover up they don't have any patient identifying factors. They just have, this is a 35-year-old who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 6. This is a 55-year-old female, etc. And a lot of these retrospective studies or meta-analyses will look at studies across the board and they'll try to find common denominators. Well, that's the study that I believe RFK Jr. wants to do. Let's look at all these individuals, the age at diagnosis, what their symptoms were, what their vaccines were, what were they exposed to, what was their diet. Well, let's figure out what if it turns out that their mom ate, I don't know, let's say junk food. for most of the pregnancy. Whereas another mom, if we could do a cross-sectional analysis of all the patients with severe autism and figure out what happened, we might be able to figure out what went wrong. You know how many theories are out there? Women dyeing their hair, the ultrasounds used by OBs, vaccines, cell phones, and parents are freaking out. Parents want an answer, and I don't blame them. And I have pregnant women, call saying, okay, what do I do so my child doesn't have autism? There's a child in the family with autism. This is my first child. What do I do? Well, we don't know what to tell them to do. If it's genetic, it's genetic. But what if mom doesn't have autism and dad doesn't have autism? Then how is the child getting autism? What could be happening to the genes? So let's figure it out. Now, of course, everybody wants to go after RFK, going, "Oh no, this is the most horrible thing." Well, then how? Then can you come up with a way to figure out what's going on? 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
Did you know that more than half our household energy costs go to heating and cooling? Energy efficiency isn't just good for the environment. It means lower utility bills, too. One way to reduce your energy waste is a home energy assessment. Your utility company can help, or you can learn how to do it yourself at EnergySavers.gov. That's EnergySavers.gov. You'll learn to look for air leaks around windows and doors, check ducts for holes, and improve your insulation. Another time to cut energy costs is when you shop for a new appliance. Look for the Energy Star logo and read the Energy Guide label. And there are day-to-day things you can do. Lower your thermostat in winter and raise it in the summer. Close fireplace dampers when they're not in use, and keep air filters clean. For more tips on saving money by reducing your energy waste, check out ftc.gov/green. A tip from the Federal Trade Commission, the nation's consumer protection agency.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. So Virginia Giuffre has been at the center of the Jeffrey Epstein case. And boy, is this getting weirder and weirder and weirder. She was a victim turned whistleblower. And back in 2019, she replied to another user who claimed that the FBI will kill her to protect the ultra-rich and the well-connected. And so in 2019, she said, I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me, in the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me to protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted. Now, this comes with the news this weekend that she was found dead by quote-unquote suicide at her Australian home. Now, that's concerning. Now, people can change their mind, but I got to tell you, this Jeffrey Epstein case gets weirder and weirder and weirder. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene posted the tweet and the photo of Giuffre with Prince Andrew, who I guess has also been accused of being involved in the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking ring. And Representative Taylor Greene, according to New York Post, says the truth needs to come out. More matter who is responsible. And so Giuffre's family confirmed the suicide in a statement released after her death. She's now 41 years old, or she was at the time 41 years old. And the family said it's with utterly broken hearts that we announced that she passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia. She lost her life to suicide after being a longtime victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. Now, her uncle, Jet Roberts, told the Post that he had only learned of the niece's suicide Saturday morning and was unaware of any conspiracy theories about her death. She was a very nice person who had a lot of bad luck, he said, but he did not give much detail. And so, we don't know too much about what the suicide could have been, how it happened. She had been separated from her husband for 2 decades. Apparently, I think she had 3 children. And, it could have been that, again, 2019 was years ago. And boy, did COVID alter, a lot of our, moods. But I tell you, this case is just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And it's at the point now where when they said Jeffrey Epstein died of suicide, people don't believe it. Especially when they were looking at, I think he had a hyoid bone fracture, possibly, that might have suggested a strangulation. I have to go back and look at the medical records. But we live in a time now where the Boeing whistleblower was found dead by suicide. Was it also he dead by suicide? It's scary stuff. When Jussie Smollett from Empire was going to jail, he starts screaming as he's being taken away. And he was arrested and originally found guilty before he was pardoned for faking an attack by 2 MAGA individuals wearing MAGA hats, which ended up to really blow up in his face when it looks like it was orchestrated. But when he was being carted out to go to jail, he kept screaming, how he won't kill himself. He's not suicidal. So that if, God forbid, anything happens to him, it wasn't. But you see what people are concerned about. They're concerned they're going to go to jail and somebody's going to say it was suicide. And then people are like, all right, well, it looked like a suicide. We're going to let it go. It's frightening. And I understand, and Miss Giuffre, may she rest in peace, I'd posted that 5 years ago. But with everything going on with the release of Epstein files and, you don't feel safe. And so one common thing that makes people kind of scratch their head at and second guess is the concept of whistleblowing. Yeah, well, I think it was the movie with Demi Moore, The Juror, where she didn't want to be a jury because the mob, I guess, got a hold of her and threatened her with her life, and so, or threatened her family. I forget that I saw the movie years ago. So, but there was some concept of bad people are going to go after you and laying low or not. And that's not what we want. We don't want people to fear. We want people to fight evil. The idea that this stuff happens is to keep us suppressed. Thank God for those individuals that helped the Jews hide them, try to save their lives, while the Nazis were saying, if you stick your neck out, we're going to chop it off. So just look the other way while we're doing all these atrocities. Thank God there were people who wanted to fight evil. And so when, bad things were happening to other people and in companies, and somebody speaking out ends up being dead, starts to make people go, you know what? I value my life more. I'm not going to stick my neck out. And there's got to be a better way to protect witnesses. And I'm not saying she died of nefarious or died of murder. She could have committed suicide. May she rest in peace. But we keep seeing this underlying theme where whistleblower is dead. Whistleblower is dead. Now, it could be somebody who is a whistleblower, is constantly being attacked, feels like they're constantly under a threat, and maybe like, look, I don't want to always be looking over my shoulder. I'm going to end it now when I could do so peacefully. Now, it isn't that unheard of that somebody who feels like they are under threat doesn't want to be caught. We spoke about that when it pertains to suicide. You have some people who are very depressed. Some people cannot see around the mountain of negativity and can't see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. But you have other people that they want the control. And they want the control of their final end. And so it's not that unheard of that somebody who feels like they're always in threat or always scared, may want to finally leave in peace. But unfortunately, the message we're all getting is if you're a whistleblower, bad things could happen to you. And for those of us who worked at jobs where we found something wrong and we said, oh, hey, I noticed this, we got to get this fixed, we got in trouble for it. I mean, you saw somebody stealing, now you're the victim, and now you get canned. I would rather do the right thing anytime. I don't want to work for a company that's stealing or doing bad things. I'm fine. I will leave gladly. But the more people get punished for doing the right thing, the fewer people are going to want to do the right thing. And that's not cool. And we have a lot of, sadly, bad things going on, whether it's trafficking, whether it's cartel, whether it's, slavery. There's so, we live in a very, very violent, very sick world. And nobody wants to be a whistleblower. You don't see a lot of whistleblowers for the cartel. Why? Because they're scared to death. And they don't feel people could protect them. But we need people strong enough. We need people to take that step to save other people. And I hope she wasn't murdered. Well, I hope she finds peace. It's awfully concerning that somebody was very vocal about, look, I would not do that, and I'm being threatened, winds up dead. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.